We need to look without illusion at what is unfolding on the steppe. The Institute for the Study of War reports that Moscow is pushing barely trained men into infantry assaults to squeeze out small gains and to manufacture the impression of momentum for a future bargaining table. It's not strategy in the classical sense, it is maths with blood. Russia is generating just enough bodies to replace the bodies it loses, adding a thin margin on top and then spending that margin for inches. The aim is to arrive at talks with Ukraine and the United States, brandishing a map that shows movement, even if that movement has been bought at a ruinous price. Consider how this looks from the trench line. New recruits get a month of preparation at best. They are handed into units that measure success not by the integrity of a combined arms plan, but by whether a position can be nudged 300 metres west of where it stood yesterday. The modern battlefield punishes that kind of thinking. Drones lace the air, glide bombs rake the approaches. Evacuation becomes a lottery, hence the macabre statistic that keeps surfacing in credible analyses, an abnormally high killed to wounded ratio on Russia's side. It's not merely poor first aid or chaotic command and control, it is the simple fact that a wounded man who cannot be moved without being seen will too often become a dead man before he can be reached. Strip away the euphemisms and the pictures become even uglier still. Investigations by Russian independent media describe what officers call nullifying their own soldiers. The word is chilling because it's meant to be clinical. The practice is anything but. Men sent on suicidal pushes without protection. Men ordered into the open and shot if they refuse. Men disposed of in rivers or shallow graves. This is discipline by terror, and it corrodes an army from the bottom up. It substitutes fear for leadership, threat for doctrine, spectacle for strategy. And these people don't even know what they're talking about. In the days of the First World War and the Gallipoli campaign, when Kemal Mustafa Ataturk said, "I don't expect you to win, I expect you to die," and he knew that the people who were defending the peninsula, the Gallipoli Peninsula, were defending their homeland. These soldiers don't know what they're doing. This isn't a defense strategy. This is some sort of capture of a land they have nothing to do with. And what is purchased through these lives, therefore? Not the classic reward of operational art, not a breakthrough that turns a flank or severs a supply line, but a set of modest dents in Ukraine's defences. CSIS and others quantify this misalignment with pitiless clarity. Since early 2024, Russia has burned through vast quantities of equipment and people for marginal ground. Average daily gains in the tens or 100 metres. Territorial additions in the low thousands of square kilometres across a front that spans a nation. The attrition ratios are lopsided and the cost per square kilometre is rising, not falling. This is the opposite of learning. It's the normalisation of wastage. Moscow will insist that numbers alone absolve these methods. It will tout monthly recruitment claims by the tens of thousands. It will point to factories humming under war budgets and to partners willing to sell drones, shells and components. It will say that time is on their side. Yet time is not neutral here. Time exposes the brittleness of a system that must keep feeding men forward to maintain the appearance of progress. Time exposes the loss of junior officers and NCOs who make modern forces coherent. Time exposes the financial strain of munitions burned for theatrical effect rather than operational payoff. A state can sustain such losses for longer than we might wish, but it cannot convert them into the kind of decisive successes it advertises. It can only convert them into leverage at a talks table if the rest of us let the spectacle of losses be mistaken for the substance of advantage. The rhetorical claim from the Kremlin will be simple. We hold the initiative, but initiative is not a talisman. It is useful only when it can be translated into choices your opponent cannot refuse. To force choices, you must either break through or break down. Russia is doing neither. It is not breaking through defences that are layered and adaptive, where trenches, mines and dragon teeth are backed by artillery, FPV swarms and dispersed command posts. And if it is not breaking down Ukraine's will, because the moral economy of defence is different from that of assault, a defender can trade space for time and use time to thicken the line. An attacker that trades lives for meters without changing the geometry of the fight invites contempt from the professionals and pity from the civilians who must live with the consequences and bury the bodies. Some reach for history to justify the present. Velites in the Roman Republic, they say, were young and lightly armed and went forward first to fire their javelins, and then hide. Later ages had their forlorn hope, the storming parties who took the first murderous steps against a breach. The analogy is neat but misleading. Roman skirmishers screened a formation that was designed to maneuver. They probed in order to open a path for heavier ranks to achieve decision. What we see today is not a screen but a meat grinder. These are not fencers clearing a lane for a decisive thrust. They are bait for drones and artillery in a battle space where the defender sees almost everything and punishes every movement. The moral parallel is apt, the tactical parallel is false. What then is the logic of pushing such assaults while floating the idea of talks? It's the theatre for leverage. Arrive at negotiations with a front line that has edged forward. Claim that recruitment can surge again. Hint at larger offensives if the West blinks, and ask for concessions that ratify your incremental changes. But theatre is only persuasive if the audience lacks its own script. Ukraine and its partners do have one. Continued air defence, deep fires, electronic warfare, industrial resupply raise the cost of every Russian step. Intelligence and training raise the effectiveness of every Ukrainian shot. When that support is sustained, the calculus behind Moscow's approach starts to look costly and circular. Replace, spend, replace again. Talk about momentum, repeat. The loop persuades no one who can count. And there's also a moral ledger, which we should not be coy about. A state that normalizes the execution of its own soldiers, that monetizes escape from suicidal missions, that treats convicts, conscripts, and marginalized as grist, advertises not strength, but decay. Armies can be cruel without being rotten. This is something else. It is the systematic trading of human beings for press statements and negotiating points. If that sounds harsh, listen to the testimonies from inside Russia's units, or to the families still looking for the men who simply didn't come back. War reveals character, and this war has revealed a command culture willing to waste its people to maintain the illusion that it cannot be defied. Now, none of this implies that Ukraine's burden is light. Its casualty figures are grievous. Its cities endure punishment strikes. Its economy strains under mobilization and displacement. But defense has a different grammar. It's easier to be efficient when you are not trying to cross open ground under hostile eyes. It's easier to be patient when the line that you hold is your home. It's easier to justify sacrifice when every village retaken is a village restored. That is why the argument that Russia holds all the cards is not just analytically weak, it is politically dangerous. It mistakes volume for momentum and momentum for mastery. So here is the sober conclusion. Russia can still mobilize men and material, but the way it spends them is strategically inefficient and morally bankrupt. Its recent gains are too small to compel Kyiv. Its casualty and equipment curves point the wrong way for any army that hopes to transition from attrition to decision. Its talk of negotiations is an attempt to launder this weakness into leverage. The correct response is neither fatalism nor triumphalism, it is steadiness. Keep Ukraine's air defended. Keep its guns supplied. Keep its factories, ports and grids alive. Keep the intelligence flowing. Do that, and the Kremlin's arithmetic will continue to fail the test that matters most, converting loss into lasting advantage. And when the moment for talks truly arrives, we should remember what the maps will not show. They will not show the ruined battalions fed into the line to purchase a headline. They will not show the men nullified to maintain discipline by fear. They will not show the families who stopped hoping for a knock on the door and started hoping only for a grave. Those absences tell us more about the real balance of power than any coloured polygon on a slide. The side that must destroy its own to pretend it is winning is not a side that wins. It's a side that waits for others to grow tired, and our task is to ensure that we do not.